Good morning. I am a fellow traveler through this life with myasthenia gravis. I'm also a longtime believer that there are aspects of myasthenia gravis over which we have control. For example, we have control over our thoughts, we have control over our mindset, we have control over our actions and inactions. I know that for myself, taking control of my attitude and my emotions really has been key to me living a life that's meaningful and with purpose, with joy, and also with myasthenia gravis. We are absolutely thrilled to have a dynamic experts panel here, and those experts will, they really are. But they're going to talk to us a little bit, and they're going to help guide us in building coping skills to overcome any myasthenia gravis challenge. Emily is a licensed master social worker. She helps people who are navigating life's transitions find the tools and overcome difficulties. In doing so, she can help them build coping skills, their abilities, and their resilience. She has a practice here in East Lansing. Thank you so much, Emily, for spending the morning with us.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Good. So yes, my name is Emily Bleak. I am a social worker, therapist here in East Lansing. My background is in healthcare social work, and I see clients in my practice for a variety of reasons, but I tend to focus on clients who are living with chronic illnesses and also clients who have experienced grief and loss in any form. Oftentimes, I do use a therapeutic technique called CBT, which is called cognitive behavioral therapy. Really what that is you're thinking about what you're thinking about. So you're able to take a step back and look at your thoughts and say, okay, wow, like I'm really angry right now. I wonder why that is. And then kind of pick that apart. So CBT can be somewhat helpful. But I also want to look today at living with chronic illness through a different lens. And I want to look through the lens of grief and loss. And before you start wondering what the heck kind of presentation you are at, because we are not here to bog you down with sadness, I just want to remind you that grief and loss can mean the loss of, obviously, yes, a life or a person, but it can mean the loss of ability. It can be the loss of an opportunity. It can be the loss of, a hope or a dream. So it can really show up in a lot of different ways. So I just want to clarify that before we begin. And I start tossing around the word grief like this is, super down or super depressive. That's not what I mean. We're just acknowledging, losses of all kinds. Okay. So I'm a firm believer that oftentimes once our grief or our loss is acknowledged and felt, we can be more present and more easily able to focus it on challenges and joys ahead. So I'm also not trying to take you too far back, but I really do feel like sometimes it's a matter of being able to sit with difficult emotions, and then we are more easily able to be in the present day and do things like what Lisa talked about, where you're able to really be more in control of your current present day feelings. So I mean this in a way that can free up emotions that we tend to feel as we grapple with a new diagnosis or if we're living with a chronic illness that we've had for years. I'm a firm believer that once this grief is often acknowledged and felt, we can be more present and able to focus. So before we begin modifying our mindset, before we can begin reframing our emotions, there's also usually this change that we need to grieve and acknowledge. And I realize today not everybody probably is here on the same timeline. Some of you may be diagnosed yesterday. Some of you may have been living with this disease for 20, 30 years. Some of you may be in remission. Some of you may be out. Scroll for a minute. So the process that you've been through arriving here today was most likely not very straightforward. And I don't want to speak for anybody here in the room, but I'm guessing that it's a safe assumption that at first maybe you weren't believed or your symptoms were maybe discounted when you first brought them to your healthcare provider. You might have experienced some painful tests or some procedures And you may have done the emotional gymnastics of trying to be a pleasant and compliant patient while also trying to advocate for yourself. You may also be trying to still do that now, which I know is a difficult thing that we sometimes people navigate as they have chronic illnesses. It's important to give space and time and grief and mourn and hold the emotions that brought you to this place. So I think an important thing to distinguish is I know oftentimes, and especially in our culture when we have chronic illness of any kind, there can be a hesitancy or a fear to say like, oh, okay, I don't want to spend too much time being sad because then, oh my gosh, like then I'm not being hopeful, or I don't want to spend too much time being angry because I don't want to get stuck in the anger. And also like being angry doesn't really feel great. I know, right? Being sad isn't often like the most comfortable feeling. So we do often try to push negative, unpleasant feelings away. I mean, me too. I don't like them. But I guess what I'm trying to say today is like, they have a role. They are important. If we keep pushing them away and keep trying to say like, okay, don't happy thoughts only. Oh my gosh, no, blah, blah, blah. Like, you're only delaying the inevitable, as I'm sure maybe we all know here, of just like, there's going to come a time where all of it's going to come to a head. Okay. So we are not giving in to negative thinking when we sit with these difficult feelings. It is important to not skip over this step. So that's why I'm spending so much time with this. And I'm not trying to bring you all back to day 1 or 2 here, but I'm just saying it's important to make sure that we sit with feelings like anger, like sadness, like rage, maybe confusion, maybe resentment, maybe shock, and maybe shame. And you are allowed to have a reaction to any way that you're feeling any particular day, any particular test results, any particular doctor's office. It doesn't mean doctor's office visit. It doesn't mean you're moving backwards. Okay. So when we feel difficult feelings, I know sometimes it feels like, oh my gosh, no, I've already moved past this. I don't want to feel these things anymore. It doesn't mean that. You're not going backwards. You can't go back. You all know too many things. You've been through too many experiences for that to happen. Okay. So if we can kind of get rid of that fear that's often between, you know, where you're at and sitting with a difficult emotion and maybe just having some tears or having some rage, or still kind of being like, how the hell did I get here? That's fine. Okay. So we're trying to validate your experience and the process it took for you to arrive here today. Okay. Okay. Given all that, so we're here today and we're trying to acknowledge all the changes that have occurred. And that often means letting go of a previous expectation of the way you were expecting your life to look, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure everybody here had a way when we were in our teens or 20s or 30s or even 40s of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is how I think my life is going to look. This is the kind of place I'm going to live in. This is the kind of job I'm going to have. These are the kind of activities that I want to be able to do. This is the type of family I want to be a part of. Okay. And this obviously is, you know, intersectional, right? Like it doesn't have to just do with having MG. It can show up in a lot of different ways. But it's important to recognize, oh, okay, this is different than how I thought it was going to be. And it's important to process like that gap, right? Between like what you thought and what you wanted and what you hoped for and what it is. And I want to be really, really, really careful, because I am certainly not trying to imply that the gap means that your life will be worse or less than. That's not what I'm saying at all. All we're doing is acknowledging that there is often quite a big difference from what we think something might be like, and then sometimes what it is. And that's a difficult thing to reconcile at times. And that's important work to do. And certainly that's work to do with a therapist. I do it with clients quite often, because there can often be a lot in that gap between what I thought I was going to have and what I have. Okay. Let's see here. All right, I'm going to speak a bit to family members and caregivers maybe who are here today who have loved ones with MG, okay? It is important for you all to acknowledge your feelings as well. They are valid. I say this often in session. I say it to my kids. I say it all the time. There is no use in comparing pain. Trying to compare pain or hardship with someone else who's going also through hardship really just ends with everybody feeling very frustrated and not heard. And it's just not going to get you to a place where you can move forward. Okay. So we're not trying to say, oh, this caregiver has it worse or this patient has it worse. Like, this is all difficult stuff, right? Like, life is hard. So don't discount your experience as a caregiver because you are the caregiver, right? I actually saw the handout that was out in front, and it actually has some really lovely thoughts about the importance of taking care of yourself as a caregiver. And I'll second everything that's in that, and I'll just say, you know, the backwards part about being a caregiver for someone is that your only job is to keep your cup full so that you can keep giving and supporting and loving the people in your life who need it. Okay? So in a weird, wacky way, you have to take extra good care of yourself. You have to make sure that you are not depleted. You have to make sure that you have everything you need and your needs are met. Because then when someone comes asking, oh, hey, can you do this thing for me? And you're depleted, your response, as mine is when I'm often depleted too, is not going to probably be the most patient loving one that you want to have. Understand that? I do this too. Okay. So it is often just as difficult to watch someone you care about going through something challenging when all you can do is observe. It can be quite a powerless situation at times, and I just want to acknowledge that for you, that is not easy. I don't know about you, but I don't like looking at people I care about going through a difficult thing and not being able to help them. It's probably why I'm a therapist, and that's a deeper issue, but it is a difficult thing, okay? So it's important for you, family members, to have a support system outside of your loved one with MG that you can share with, that you can lean on, that you can vent to, okay? And I also want to be careful that sometimes we can assume, oh, I'm just complaining. I don't want to complain. Okay, there's no complaining. We're talking about the facts of a situation, and we're talking about your feelings about that. Okay, you're not going to drown in them. It's okay to acknowledge some feelings that you're having if you're having a rough day or an impatient day or not your best day. It's important to be able to share that and get support when that happens, because that's all part of keeping that cup full for the person that we love that has MG. Okay? So, day-to-day living, now onto the present day. Mental health, living with MG. I think it's important to be aware that it takes everybody with any chronic illness, but takes you all with MG, more emotional and mental energy to get through each day than your average person. Okay? So people living with MG often need to put more thought and planning into how a day or an event is going to impact their afternoon, how it's going to impact the rest of their day, how it's going to impact their week, right?
Yes.
It is important to be really mindful of that energy that the planning takes, okay? Because sometimes you can be exhausted, I'm sure, before you ever show up to the family event or the trip or the concert, okay? So be careful with how you think about yourself and how you perceive yourself, because I think there's that easy thing that we can all do in our heads of like, well, I'm just going to the store, or I'm just cooking a meal, or I'm just playing with my grandkids. Like, what's the big deal? Everybody does this. Okay. It takes probably, I'm going to average, you all know better, 5 to 10 extra pre-planning steps for these average every day. I'm going to the store. I'm picking up my kid from school. I need to finish this work project. Okay. It's not as simple as let me go grab some sandwiches. Okay. It's more complex than that. It takes more from you. And I say that being careful with yourself, because it's almost like give yourself that internal high five. You're doing awesome, amazing work, and give yourself the credit for all the extra energy and time and thoughtfulness that you have to put into caring for yourself and caring for your body.
Emily, excuse me. Your words of wisdom has touched me deeply. This is my gentle notice to you that you have 2 minutes left.
I'm on the next paragraph. Thanks so much. Love it. Thank you, Lisa. Yes. So it's easy to become impatient with yourself and think all I'm doing is fulfilling tasks like everybody else. Okay? And that reminder that you are not doing something that's easy. Okay, in conclusion. No, you're not. You were right on time. Just when you think you might have processed all your grief, I talk with my hands, so my mic's just when you think you got it, just when you think, oh, I'm all set, I'm accepting my diagnosis, I'm here. Guess what? You know what the most annoying part about grief is that it just keeps coming back and reappearing. Because you are not the same person that you were 10 years ago. Thank God, neither am I. Okay? We change all the time. So our lens changes, our perspective changes, our thoughts change, our emotions change. So I just say to be patient with yourself. If you have a thought or a feeling that comes up and you're like, oh my gosh, why am I struggling with the same old feeling again? I've been doing it since the beginning. Okay? This is how it goes. You're different. So you have a different skill set and set of emotions when you look at things that have happened to you that sometimes you need to go over and use again. Something may have not hit you as difficult or frustrating. It may suddenly become very emotional for you. And all that means is that you've grown and you've changed, and you now need to look at something again from a new and different angle and process it again, be kind to yourself again, give yourself that internal high five and be like, okay, I'm doing it. This is a lot. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So Amy is an occupational licensed occupational therapist, and she has years of experience helping children and adults overcome physical and mental health challenges in order that they can live their best lives. So she practices in Alpena, Michigan. Thank you, Amy.
Well, thank you, and I'm so happy to be here. I probably will not be as spontaneous as these students. They are professionals as public speaking, and this is my first time. I have a lot of information to share. I'll be reading quite a bit of it, but hopefully my sincerity eventually will shine through because it's very meaningful to me. My name is Amy Smitham. I was diagnosed with MG when I was just 12 years old. Really, my symptoms appeared when I was around 9. So it's fair to say I'm 46 now, going to be 47. It's fair to say that I've had MG most of my life and almost all my life. It's my norm. It's what I know. I don't remember what it was like, and I can't imagine what it was like without it. To me and to normal people, my life, I think growing up was probably different. Well, everybody's life is different. But with MG, being diagnosed earlier is different than being diagnosed later. There's some things that I think are easier to do, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Teach some of you older folks some things that us young people know, for one stuff. But just hopefully that they'll help some of the later life diagnosis, because they really are beneficial. Okay, when I reflect back on my life with MG, my experiences and what it has taught me about who I am and what I'm capable of, I'm very grateful for it. I'm a better person because of it. Sure, I don't appreciate the double vision, the weak hands, the weak face, the chronic fatigue, slurred speech. Sometimes I've had it all. But it was in those difficult times of suffering that I was able to really embrace my faith, accept myself, and overcome extreme obstacles to find purpose and live an active and meaningful life with MG. I did this by focusing on what I could do and what I could control and taking care of those things. If I couldn't do something one way, I'd find another way to do it. And over time, I realized that I could do just about almost anything I wanted if I was willing and able to adapt, whether it be my environment, my attitude, or my behavior. I can live a very, very meaningful life. So today, I'm going to start out talking about adaptation and what that means to me. Adapting, in order to live a meaningful life, all creatures must adapt. Adaptation is essential to survival. Animals adapt, environments adapt. All living things must adapt in order to survive. Research shows that our quality of life is directly related to participation in life activities, and this requires adapting and problem solving. What does it mean to adapt? The definition is to change something, to modify something in order to suit different conditions or uses. We adapt our attitudes, our mindset, to accept where we are and believe that we can. We can also adapt our environments and behaviors in order to access things easier and more efficiently and to accomplish what we need to do as independently as possible. And those are the things Emily was touching base on at the end of her presentation, those energy conservation things and work simplification, kind of working smarter, not harder. And I've become quite the professional in that growing up. The first thing we need to do in order to adapt is a belief that we can do so. The key to accepting where we are and moving forward where we want to go is having a positive mindset. The definition of mindset is an established set of attitudes held by some. It is a set of values and a belief system that is more in depth than just thinking that you can do something. It is believing that you can do it and being willing to change and adapt because you believe that you can. A positive mindset for me was acceptance of where I was, focusing on what I could control and accepting what I couldn't. I didn't focus on anything that I couldn't do because I never really could have done it in the first place. And this goes back to me being young. So a lot of me growing up doing new things was because, or I didn't look back at the things I couldn't do because I hadn't done them before. It was learning new things as a child. So the benefit to being a child with a chronic condition is that here's what I was meant to say, is that you don't know what you lost if you never had it. There are no preconceived notions on how you should be doing things in comparison to your old self, and your values and patterns of behavior are not yet fully established. Children are still learning. Their brains are still forming belief systems and attitudes to navigate life. It is easier to learn a new skill and to form new beliefs than to correct or change old ones. For me as a child going through life with my MG, and adapting to change was simply a way of life. Finding alternative solutions to problems and different ways of doing things was just a part of growing up with my condition. I think and this just is natural, that over time, people learn one way of doing something. It's kind of in their mindset. It's the quote unquote normal way. It's what we've been taught. And this is the norm, that this is the norm. Their mindset is on this belief that it's their way of doing things. When they can't do something one way, it's very difficult to adapt and change and do things at all. And this eventually leads to decreased participation in life, decreased function, independence, and a poor quality of life. You must have an accepting, adaptable mindset in order to lead a purposeful life. One example of this and having this, accepting this more positive mindset, I see it every day with my patients, and I work in the geriatric population. Many of my patients believe that walking means walking without a walker. This is what they've always done. They feel that a walker or any device is a hindrance and a setback to their independence. Their minds they are content to stay inside versus go outside because they don't want to use the walker. Their mindset is that with the walker, they're not independent. So a more positive way of looking at that would be viewing the walker as something not hindering your independence, but actually making you more independent. Without the walker, you couldn't really go anywhere. You have to stay in the house. With the walker, you can go outside of the community. You can do more things, and it focuses on the action of doing and accepting and adapting versus kind of staying in place. And it's not coming to the mindset that you're never going to use a walker. It's just accepting where you are and doing as much as you can at that time. Because you must keep living. You have to keep participating, even if it's just laying in bed, and rolling. You have to keep doing what you can each day. So for me, my goal growing up was never to be normal. It was to be able to do what I wanted. And approaching obstacles with a child's innocence gives you an adaptable mindset. Once we're willing to change, we can start adapting. And we do this by adapting our environments to make them safer and more acceptable. And then our behaviors to conserve energy. So I want to go over just a few of those things, those modifications. They're all in most of the energy survival books, the environmental adaptations. And as an occupational therapist, I do this all the time, going to people's homes and making things more accessible. So maybe it might be raising seats so that they're the appropriate level, your feet can touch the ground, you've got arm rests. Using adaptive equipment like reachers and sock aids. Things that make dressing easier. I brought with me, I'm starting adapting clothing because I find that a lot of my patients and I have struggled with buttoning and putting on clothes. Sometimes I'm so exhausted after getting dressed that I just, it's just difficult. So simplifying your life and working smarter, not harder, is ways that have really will improve and enhance your quality of life. If we have time, I'll show you some stuff. But otherwise, after the presentation, I have it, some of my things in the other room. So you can look at those. If you want to try them on, see what you like. So other adaptations might be positioning grab bars in the shower, raising toilet seats. All these things are not because you can't do those things. It's because you need to do them easier. Your body, all together, those things will make it easier for you to live. Some behavioral adaptations. Positioning is huge. Good posture is important because positioning affects your body's efficiency and ability to work. Your body works its best and uses less energy when it's positioned properly. So if you're bending down, and this includes basically your head's over your shoulders, shoulders over hips, hips over knees, knees over toes. That's the perfect posture. Well, that's when our body works the best. So when you bend down, you're using more energy. If you can to put on your socks, if you can raise your feet up to put on your socks or use a sock aid, that's going to help your body work at its best. So positioning is very big, and I'm very big with that. It protects your joints too. When you stand, you're putting a lot of pressure on your hips, and that can cause you to fatigue easier. You have to work sitting in the shower. It's huge. Not because you can't stand, but you're letting your body rest because it's a very taxing activity. So behavioral adaptations. Planning ahead, pacing yourself, learning your activity tolerance and listening to your body. I think it's one of the biggest things I see with people working harder is they're doing so many steps to do one activity. So skipping steps. If you're tired doing an activity, see if there's a way that you can make it easier. For example, I have a patient, he loves to feed birds. It takes him about 20 minutes to do this. He has to get a bucket. He takes it to the bin and get bird seed, carries the seed back to the feeder, goes, gets more seeds, goes, carries the front seeder. Then he goes to the shed to get the suet. It's such a process. And it's his way of thinking. He used to do that way. He's a very active person, but now he has Parkinson's. And afterwards, we have to go inside. He's had almost multiple falls, or he has almost fallen many times doing this activity. So what I did is I talked to him about the walker and what it was for. He has a community walker, one of those rollators with 4 wheels outside. And he doesn't always need it. But I kind of educated him what it was for. I moved items closer to the birdhouse, and within reach. And I had him use his walker, talked about, posture. And now it takes him one trip versus 4 to 5, and he can do it in under 7 minutes versus 20. These are little things that we don't always think about, but we have to reassess throughout our life. This is something,
I'm gonna say my gentle, loving, you have 2 minutes left, please. But
Okay.
every statement you've made is powerful and been very encouraging.
Yeah, we'll go really quick. Okay, so this is something that you guys are really good at, that we're really good at, is this adaptation. And as you grow older and with your MG, you realize that you have a kind of a benefit over normal people because you're more willing to do these things. You have to. So that leads me next to purpose and finding purpose in your life. If you don't have purpose and meaning in your life, you will not eventually stop living and doing what is valuable to you. You stop becoming part of society. You no longer want to live. And you must find this purpose in order to live. To me, this involves my faith in God and a higher purpose. I believe that my MG was very intentional, that I had it for a reason. When it was so bad, when my MG was so bad, and I couldn't see or speak well, and I felt like there was nothing that I could control. I prayed, and I always had control over my thoughts and a belief that God would get me through this moment. And He always did. I realized over time that with God, my life improved, and I was able to cope better. So having that spiritual aspect and having that belief system is huge. And then last, sharing my story gives my story purpose. Sharing my story with y'all. And many of you, Lisa, Esther, they helped me grow up in having MG, and I was not like this. You know, it was very difficult when I was younger. The grief was very hard. It came differently, but it was difficult on the same. So I used this skill set with MG in my career. I don't think I would be an OT without it. And I am a more caring, empathetic, compassionate medical provider because of it. I can relate to my patients on a deeper level, and I've come to realize I've led an amazing, purposeful life, not despite my MG, but because of it.
We're ready for questions and answers. I have a few questions that I can start us off. One of them would be what you described as having someone help you adapt. If you can't think of how, I can do it a little bit smarter than harder. How would they get in contact with an occupational therapist?
Well, you can talk to your doctor and they will refer you to one. You can look at some outpatient clinics. If you're at home, look at therapy clinics.
And my understanding is a lot of insurances will pay for occupational therapy.
Yes.
Is that accurate?
Yes, and you can get like a home evaluation and do home, and it's under the Med B for occupational therapy. They can come into your home, or you can go to outpatient clinics. You can always contact me. I'm willing to give, you guys are my people, so I'm willing to, if you're having trouble with something, I can kind of give some advice or make suggestions for you too. But really, just talk to your doctor.
Over with your adaptive clothing. I'm going to toss a similar type question to you, only a little bit different. I'm the fan of cognitive behavioral therapy, and I relate to talk about it, especially when I get stuck in a loop in my thoughts, and I think you can relate to this. And a lot of times it's not happy loop that I'm in. And I've really found talking to someone, especially you don't know my family, you don't know my friends, and let me just tell you how I'm feeling about something. But how would I go about finding somebody that I would feel comfortable with? Will my insurance cover it? Then what do I do? Just call them, or how does that work?
Great question. So I would say having a good therapist is all about having a good relationship. So you could go to a therapist who is saying that I am an expert in energy and I know every single thing about energy there is to know about. And you could go and just not really feel like you have rapport. You don't really feel like you feel comfortable with that person. And that's an issue. So in my opinion, I think it's most important to be able to have that relationship where you feel comfortable and there's rapport and you can have back and forth. But in terms of finding a good fit, there is that trial and error portion where it's like, okay, you can get, a therapist a couple times, but if you're just not feeling quite right about it, I always tell my clients, like, if you don't feel like you can talk about the things you want to talk about in here, that's fine. Like, my feelings are not hurt. I would much rather you just say like, hey, Emily, I'm going to keep looking for someone. You can certainly go through your primary care physician. You can certainly look online, Psychology Today. Psychologytoday.com is a good resource, and you can kind of go through and filter out with your insurance and what your concerns are. If you prefer a certain male, female therapist,
What they look like, you can see what they look like.
everything, yes, where they're located. Another nice thing, the few positives came from the pandemic, and one is telehealth. I now have a good handful of clients that I really have never met in person. But I know that allows some flexibility. And then they can feel, more comfortable in their own home sometimes as well while we're chatting.
Right. I also want to, both of you mentioned mindset, and a mindset when seeking somebody to, for example, for me, helping with my mood. I don't want to feel bad that I might think, oh, I'm gonna have to do this forever, there's something wrong with me. But rather, I just need you, I can describe to you my mood. Just help me figure out how to get out of this and start back into what's meaningful and purposeful, right? So that's another thought, that it's not forever necessarily.
No. And really at the end of the day, to remember that your head is trying to help you. Like, your brain is trying, even if it's going backwards, right? And it keeps you in a loop, but it's like, it's trying to find an answer. It's trying to find something that feels good. It's trying to find something that feels right. And I think what CBT is, we're saying like, okay, but is this the best way to go about it? Is me running this through 10,000 times in my head going to get me to that place of finding an answer brain? Probably not. But I think just also with that kind of trusting and honoring yourself, like, your head is trying to do something smart. Like, it's trying to find you some peace. It's trying to find you some predictability. It's trying to find you the answer. Sometimes you just have to check your head and be like, okay, but is this really the way? Is this going to get me there or no?
So wonderful questions, and thank you to the panel. Another big round of applause.